All right. Let's see how many people are in here. All right. And we are definitely live. So, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are based today. Welcome to today's webinar, and thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have you here. I'm your host and moderator, Ingrid Woodley. Some of you already know me. I'm the head of content and marketing for Folio. We also have with us Matt Abedi, our director of product and customer experience. Hi, Matt.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. And we also have Alexandra Pantia, one of our product managers. And to be more precise, Alexandra is the product manager for the features that we are going to be talking about today. Hi, Alexandra. Are you ready to talk about your baby?
Yes, of course. Always ready. Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Yep, that's Alexandra, our Girl Scout. So today we want to talk about the new internal library functionalities, which we released in June. And if you've been with Folio since before June, you would have already noticed the changes. Now, some of you may be wondering, what the heck is an internal library? We've always had a materials library. It's always contained every single product that we've ever specified. Well, that's your clue, and I'm going to let Matt explain that. But in the meantime, I want to give everyone a heads up that we have two main objectives for today. Number one is that we know that everyone has a completely different workflow, so not all of you may be aware of all the new functionalities. So we're going to go over that, and hopefully we help you make your workflow a little bit more efficient and easy by the time that we are done. And number two, like I said, we released the new features in June, and we have spoken to several of you since then, Alexandra, to be more exact. So today, we also want to discuss user insights, best practices, confusions, potential roadblocks that some users like yourself might have run into. And as always, guys, questions and comments are always welcome. So please leave those in the comments area, and we will do our best to address them after the discussion. Please don't wait. You can put your questions and comments down right now. And yeah, we will get to you. So let's get started. Matt, what do you have for us today?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I think before we dive in, I'm going to give a quick overview of what Folio is trying to accomplish as a platform, and then what we're trying to accomplish with the internal library. For this might be a review for people who've been with us for a long time, but for anybody who's new in the call, hopefully this will be helpful to tell you about what Folio is trying to do big picture. So Folio is a centralized data platform for all of the information necessary for the specification of your project, your construction project. We do this in a couple different ways. One of them is by automating as much of the specification process as possible. That's the web clipper, which makes it easy to take information off the web, but also our internal library that we'll be showing you today, which lets you take items from previous projects and reuse them, or take items from a pre-approved set of products, an internal library, a library that's consistent with your company's brand guidelines and compliance, and use them in new projects. That last part will be cost tracking and transparency. So with all this data about purchasing, your relationships with vendors, we want to use that information long term to help you negotiate better with those vendors, improve your relationships, and see what vendors you can rely on most, and see if you can use your purchasing power to your own advantage. But for today, we're going to be covering the internal library, which is one of our first early steps in this direction. The internal library is one way that we're taking many projects, specifications from lots of projects, and centralizing them and saying what's happening across multiple projects and what information can we share between those projects to you and the people that you work with. So some of those features today will just be about how that library is going to work well. But in the future, as the library gets more sophisticated, we'll have those more powerful tools for you. On my side, I'll cover some of the very basics. And because this is Alexandra's baby, we'll let her get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff. So for my part, we're going to talk about the difference between the internal library and specifying from previous projects. I'll go into what that difference is and what that means in terms of a change in features for people who've been with Folio for a while. Then I'll show you how to add approved items, how saved documentation can be passed along from project to project, and then how someone can send a new product to the library to start an approval process. Just to accept for that, sometimes designers want to recommend that certain items are added into the library because they follow brand standards or they are compliant, and that they want to pass that information along to other teams who are working with them so they can use those products. That's a lot to take in theoretically, so let's look at what it looks like right inside the Folio platform. All right, bear with me. All right, here we go. So the first thing we're going to do is go to add, and I want to talk through the difference between the internal library, adding a product from the internal library, and adding from existing projects. Previously, if you've used Folio's internal library, you knew that Folio's internal library just took every product across all of your projects and found the unique products and said, that's your library. So there wasn't much control as to what was in there. It was just if there was one version of something, or at least one version of something, it showed up in your library. What we want to do now is give you the option to select items from your library, from a place where you have affirmatively and positively said, we want this item to be used on other projects. But also, if you want to borrow from someone else's project before approval or something like that, or that form of library just doesn't speak to your working style, you would also still have this second option. So what does an internal library look like? Well, first of all, we'll look at existing projects. And just like before, you can pick out the category that you want to specify from, and you'll see all of your products. And these are all the products that I've used throughout all of my other projects. And now Folio will tell you how many of them are in your library. So how many of them are approved in your library and ready for use. The last piece here, or the newest piece, is to add from internal library. Now, I haven't added a lot of things into my internal library, and that's kind of the point, to show you that you can limit exactly what is compliant up front. And that can be a smaller target or smaller playground or palette that your designers can work from. Just like before, you can select one of those items, you can use that selected item, and Folio will populate that information with all of the data that you had before. And that includes any documentation that you have. So any CAD files, warranties, installation instructions, and any notes that your team has that they want to pass between each other. So for instance, if someone says, hey, we worked with this item, but I ran into such and such problems, they can save a file, or Word doc, a PDF, whatever they like, attach to this file or leave it as a comment, and make sure that your teammate, whenever they're specifying this, have a little bit of a heads up as to what's going on. We also made it very quick and easy for you to understand what items are drawn from your internal library and what items are not yet in your internal library that have been specified just for this project. And you can do that by looking to the left here, and you'll see a green bar. So if you're managing a project or you're collaborating with a teammate, you can quickly see what items were freshly specified and might need a little extra review to make sure that that product works well with what you're promising that customer. Or you can also see what's green and therefore coming from the library and is ready to use. All right. Last piece here is you'll see one of these items. Let's pick this one. One of these items I specified freshly because I didn't find something in my internal library that worked for me, and I didn't find anything in my existing projects listing that worked for me. But I still want to get approval from my administrator to use this item in future projects. or to get this approval now so that in this project, we're all on the same page that this item's copacetic. So we'll take this item, we'll go to the dropdown, and we'll add it to send. We'll send it to our internal library. Whenever your administrator logs in and goes into their library, they'll go to the internal library and they'll see lists like this. They'll see what's been added as new from the project and need your review. So I can switch something to ready to use, or let people know it's pending because we still have some discussions to have before this item is really deemed appropriate for future projects. And of course, if a vendor tells me that a product is no longer available, I can discontinue items and communicate that out to my team that certain items just aren't possible for future projects, and maybe we need to find a replacement. Again, the purpose of all of these features in the long-term portfolio is to be able to collect more and more of this information to understand which products are being bought and sold, and that way we can help you negotiate with those vendors and understand your own purchasing habits. So if you need to move away from a vendor, you can make that choice. Or if you're a high volume customer with a vendor, you can say, hey, we have all of this purchasing power. We are this amount of your business. We would like to have a better deal. We think that we're that important of a customer that we should get a better cut. That's everything on my side. Those are the rundown of the basics. For now, I will stop being the center of attention and hand over the mic to Alexandra to walk us through more of the particulars.
Well, actually, Matt, thank you so much for that, though. But before we let you off the hook, we do have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Oops,
So there's a little bit here of there's a theme here about curating materials. About it's almost sort of like a gatekeeping kind of thing where instead of, like we said in the beginning, having everything in one place, now we're kind of evolving into a tool that allows people to, well, is this product actually okay to use for all of our future projects? How did we even get to that? Like, what were people asking for that, that we got to, that started us building this functionality in the first place?
Yeah, of course. I mean, one is for a lot of our smaller clients, there are a lot of standards that just work really well across lots and lots of projects. And for some of those folks, they also have a habit on their own of looking for data, looking for new products that they can use on future projects, that they've checked all the boxes of making sure that this product would work for them, and moving that directly into their library. It can be an important part of their workflow as they're constantly preparing for new projects. But for even larger teams that work with multiple brands and have complex compliance needs, inside the library, you can start to segment by, hey, these products are compliant with this brand standard, or this is compliant with our company's commitment to creating passive homes, or whatever it ends up being. Those kinds of choices become a whole lot easier when, instead of having to look through a guidebook or double check against a bunch of standards on another file, that they exist already in Folio. And instead of having to relearn all of those lessons are stored and automated inside of Folio for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Something else I just wanted to add here is that when Matt was saying something about, you could look at relationships with your vendors, and you can maybe at the end of the year show them data that, hey, guys, this is how much business we've been giving you the past year. So, is there anything here that we can do to maybe make it a little better for us as your loyal customers? And hey, if it doesn't work out, I mean, it's data they can show another vendor and say, look, guys, these other guys, they're not really able to help us in that way. So if we can bring you this much business, maybe are you able to give us a better deal? So there you go. All right, so let's move on. Alexandra has a lot to tell us. Alexandra, what do you have to tell us today?
Hey, Ingrid, thank you so much for the warm intro. So again, I just want to thank everyone watching us live right now who want to learn about the library, and anyone watching the recording of this webinar as well. It's great to see so much support. A special round of thanks goes out to everyone who has positively responded to our interview invitations. And yeah, let's get down to it. So when we talk about the responses so far, it's been pretty much positive. The general sentiment is that the internal library is a great way of managing product information so that a organization can build that catalog of pre-approved items that Matt was talking about. Some of the things we've actually learned in the past few weeks from users who have taken the library for a test drive are that we have some areas of potential improvements. Some of the existing functionalities may be a bit hidden, and there's also an ongoing discussion about discontinuing products from a catalog, communicating that change, and establishing a firm-wide process for managing that change. So I'll start off by going over some of the functionalities of the feature as is today, and later maybe talk a bit about what the potential plans for improvements may be. So without further ado, let's just get started. Right, so every single day, products get discontinued from manufacturers or become unavailable, or maybe they're just not simply approved by your organization anymore. Maybe you cut off ties with your supplier and you need to find replacements. When other people depend on your work and ability to pivot, you need to find quick solutions. And having a catalog of pre-approved items is crucial to minimizing the impact to your live projects. You can therefore avoid costly delays by finding quick replacements or better alternatives within your own internal library. Next, let's talk about supply chain management. This is actually one of the biggest pains in the current landscape, especially in international procurement. You can take a proactive role in curating your company's product catalog. So instead of waiting to specify a product, getting all the internal and external approvals, issuing a PO just to have the supplier come back and tell you that the item is no longer being produced or the lead time has increased dramatically, you can just pick a pre-approved item from the internal library and reduce that risk. Of course, in the end, it all comes down to product information management. It's a big pain point spending time trying to find products that are approved for use or that are specific to a brand standard or a retail store size. Basically, what you can do in the internal library is you can create whatever data points you need, your team needs, and start managing that information. All those attributes could be curated in the internal library, enabling thus the rest of your company to quickly pinpoint what items are best suited for their specification needs in a live project. And as a bonus, you can update the product info in one centralized location, publish those items to all the live projects. So no more redundant work. Communicating changes is another big thing we're hoping to simplify, especially between departments. You no longer have to worry if the design team or the procurement team saw your email or your Slack message notifying them that a product has been updated. Maybe the warranty information was updated or the drawings or something. You can simply do it inside of Folio and the notification will be sent in-app with all those new updates so that the right person can take the next action step. And at the end of the day, it's up to that person to review those updates and decide whether or not to accept them in their live project. So let's show you in the platform how that looks like. So first off, there are a bunch of ways to populate your internal library. Apart from the whole configuration settings that I recommend you do at the beginning. By the way, you can always check out the tutorial with these configurations, initial setup things. So apart from the configuration, the first step is building that catalog. And there are a couple of ways to do that in Folio. If you're already using a software like an ERP system where you have all that product info, you can simply import it using the upload feature. There is also the possibilities, if you've been using Folio for a long time now, you can add some of your previous items directly from old projects and add them over to your internal library. You can also, of course, add items one by one after you're finished with the bulk of it. And more recently, we had an update at the end of July, actually, whereby you can send over items using the web clipper. So let's say you're just simply browsing through supplier websites, you find an item, it catches your eye, but there's not really a actual live project where you can use it in. You simply need to go over to the library tab, select the correct category, and pick up any product attributes you may want and send it over to your Folio library. Oops. And you can see it here at the top of the table in status pending in case you want to add any further notes, or until you're ready to make it available to use for the rest of the team, it's going to stay in status pending. Speaking of library statuses, if an item is sent over by a designer, like Matt showed a bit earlier, it will get a library status of new from project. And if you guys haven't done this before, I want to point out that there are two extremely useful features on the library as well as project sheets. That is the advanced filter and the bulk edit option. So sorry. So it's quick for a library manager to identify which items are pending review and approval, revise them, and make them available to the rest of the design or procurement teams to use in other projects. One of the things that became obvious after the interviews we had is that users aren't really familiar with how powerful the bulk edit feature really is and how much time it can save. So I actually had a client come in and tell us that they uploaded about 800 items to their library and then manually went over and changed library statuses for all of them, which is time consuming. So you simply need to filter, select all, and bulk edit, change the library status, make it ready to use for the rest of your team. And that is the super powerful combination I wanted to share. Just a quick reminder that at this moment, only ready-to-use items are going to show up in the add from internal library pop-up here. So if an item gets discontinued or it's still pending, it cannot be added to projects by the design or procure teams. What Ingrid was talking about a bit earlier, I want to touch upon that a bit. So the point is that the main difference between existing projects and the internal library features is that whereas existing projects is simply a collection of all the items you have ever added in Folio projects, the internal library gives you the ability to curate that data. So data collection is simply not enough in the fast-paced work environment a lot of us are in. Curating that data and product info is a key competitive advantage that your organization can now get when using Folio's internal library. When working with different departments, any miscommunication can hurt the project as a whole. And that's why one of our goals with the library is making sure that the critical process of communicating those product changes is efficient and easy to act on. So product info needs to be updated for a variety of reasons. Maybe there's a typo, maybe there's more information to add to the product itself. So in order to do this, you simply need to go into your internal library, add the additional info to the field you need, and right after that, you can publish updates. What this means is that you can select which active projects. By default, all of your active projects are going to get selected. and you can choose which of them you need to push these updates to. How this looks like is that for a designer or a purchasing agent or whoever works on that live project, they're going to get this type of notification at the top. They can click into it to review, and they see exactly what info has changed on what attribute, and they get the option to reject or update. Just want to point out here something that may not be super obvious is that even if you accidentally close the review notification, you can always get back to it from the edit menu, review internal library updates, it opens it up, and I'm just going to go ahead and update my project item according to the latest version in the internal library. And you may ask yourself why this is important. So first of all, it saves time. You only need to update the product in one single place, and then you publish that update to all of your live projects. Secondly, the design and procurement teams get the notification in the application itself, and they always get notified of updates and get the option to accept them or to reject them. And thirdly, you can track from a centralized location from your internal library what the status of that latest update you sent over is. So here we can see that it has been published on that specific project. So if you want to make an update in your internal library, like I mentioned, you simply need to change something and then push those updates. If you guys haven't been using the internal library this way, let us know why and what is stopping you from doing so. Like I mentioned a bit earlier, one improvement we are thinking about is the theme of discontinued products from a product catalog and how that update should be communicated to other departments. So if you have any thoughts on this about why it's important and what happens after a product gets discontinued, please reach out. We can set up a meeting, talk it over a cup of coffee or a cocktail about how this process is currently painful for your company and see where we can help.
If you Alexandra will pay for your cocktail or coffee.
Yes, and I'll help
invited you, so
and I'll help with your product information management to the best of my ability. If you have any suggestions you want to run by me, if you have some complaints, maybe the internal library is not working as well as you expected, or maybe something is just not good enough, just let me know and we can get in a meeting anytime. And just a quick reminder that we're actively working on prioritizing what to improve in the next library phase. So please contact us with your feedback. Thank you so much. Ingrid, back to you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, and for that generous offer. So yeah, guys, like Alexandra said, oh yeah, Monica, of course, is in. Reach out to us. We are always on live chat. You may have noticed that over the past few months, we've actually gotten a lot faster and better at responding to your questions or requests for help. And like we always say, these features are always the product of what users like you ask for. Any other improvements we have down the line are also because of requests. So if there's anything we can do to make it better, let us know. Do you guys have any questions for us today? I'll give it a few seconds. Right. And if not, we can all probably go home a little bit early. You guys are dismissed. All right. Well, thank you guys so much, all of you, for coming today and spending some time with us. As usual, and like we always say again and again, just reach out to us if there. Oh, okay. Actually, we do have a question from Victoria Antonenko. Is there a way to generate specs from the library?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take this. Right now, there's actually no exporting function in the internal library. You can only generate the spec book from within a project sheet, but I'd love to learn more about which type of reports, which type of format you're thinking about, and why it's important to be able to generate that spec from within the library.
Right. So kind of like I guess we would call it a workaround is just to go into any project and generate it from there, right?
It depends it depends on which items you want to export and the, like I said, the file type. But yeah, I'm interested in learning more about this. So Victoria, please rest assured, I'm going to contact you tomorrow.
Yep. Okay, also from Victoria, if we need to bring additional columns from dashboard to library that was not there initially, will all the items get unlinked?
Right, I'm also going to take this. Yes, at the moment, all the items are going to get unlinked. We are trying to figure out a better way to address this, because from your question, what I understand is that you already have the column created in the dashboard and you want to change its property for it to be product property so that it shows up in the internal library. And right now, yes, it will disconnect because there's a bit of a conflict there, a bit more technical. Happy to explain it in a interview. But the point is, we are looking into ways to like have a better solution for that. I'm just a bit curious, but I'm gonna drill into the details as to why you started adding items before adding all the data points you needed. But there's definitely room for improvement in that section.
So if it helps, there's a follow-up to her question. You were asking what kind of report she was trying to generate. She said single page.
Yep. It's actually something I've heard previously. Actually, I've heard it in the form of our advanced data sheet, which also has like a cover and index page. So, but yes, it's basically the same, very similar layout, single page report presentation. Yes.
Yep.
It is in the pipeline, let's call it. It's up for consideration for future improvements.
Awesome. Zanera says, very informative, like always. You guys explain things the best. I would say this is a little biased because she is our teammate. So thank you for the kind words, though, Zanera. We very much appreciate the support. All right. So do we have any other questions? You're welcome, Victoria. All right. So if nothing else for today, yeah, I think we are going to dismiss the class. Please reach out to us on the live chat or email us, and we will see you guys again soon. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.